Now is the time where we get into a conversation this morning, and we do that with the deputy party leader of the DCP party. He's here with us this morning. Cleophas Malala, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Good.
How are you doing?
One time.
I wasn't actually ready. I actually wasn't ready for that at all. But I guess that now is the answer to greetings.
Oh yes.
As they come.
Yeah.
So, Karibu, either way, we're going to be getting into these conversations today. So necessary for us to do so. There's a country. There's a country where we are this week, and I will not hesitate to say that it brings some really, really awesome people and some really great things. Asato will tell you that country, and then you can testify.
You see, this country every morning has a tagline in this show. Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice. We're in Nigeria today. You know who comes from there?
I have a variety of friends who come from there. Yeah.
There's one.
I know, of
Yes.
course.
So today we've just had a discussion about jollof rice. And the jollof rice, Nigerian says their version of jollof rice is the best.
The OG.
The OG rice. But the jollof rice actually comes from the Wolof people of Senegal and the Gambia. Only that theirs is flat. Nigerian is spicy. When you go to Ghana, it's a bit sweeter and a bit mild. So
You're
if you
a
want,
good student, Dennis.
very good. I know. I'm trading on grounds that I know if I don't trade well, itakuwa ni shida. But let's go to the proverb. The child who washes his hands eats with the elders.
Oh, yes. From a simplistic point of view, I would like to say that he who behaves, or he who is seated on the table where a little bit more experienced people are seated on, qualifies having the attributes of those people and even getting the privileges those people get at that point.
You get to a place of privilege if you go through the process.
Oh, yes.
All right. I think it's definitely one that we can all learn from this morning.
Sure.
Can an opposition in bed with power still speak for the people? And that's part of the conversation that we have this morning. You made quite the shift. And of course, there are certain things that you're seeing. You've also have done quite the expose from when you were... I don't even want to say in the same lines as government until now differently as late as of last week, still saying that, there are certain things that are going on which you cannot allow to happen, and that needs for a look into an alternative kind of government. And so now when we look into that conversation today, where are things headed, Cleo? Of course, I'm proud to be a Kenyan as a citizen, and that's why we are fighting for this country. But politically speaking, and in terms of governance, we are not at a good place. Our country is at its lowest since independence. We have seen the level whereby government is the one which is on the forefront, perforating its own constitution. We've seen government officials recklessly engaging in a verbal engagement with its citizen, not respecting the rights of its citizen. We've seen a country whereby looting has become normalcy. You see a country whereby impunity prevails. And therefore, we are saying this country needs to be salvaged. This has happened because we have allowed ourselves not to respect the very constitution that we promulgated in 2010. The constitution was very clear that we shall have government and we shall have opposition. The drafters of the opposition were futuristic. They had seen a situation whereby we cannot have government without a body which checks it. We need to have checks and balances. And after the 2022 general elections, it was very clear that the Kenya Kwanza faction was to form government and the Azimio faction was to form opposition. But the sad state of affairs is that the leader of opposition has always wanted to be in government but without responsibility. Look at his history. Raila Odinga has never wanted to be in government with responsibility. You remember when he got into a handshake arrangement with Uhuru Kenyatta? He had no responsibility, but he was in government. When William Ruto became president, he found his way to government, but without responsibility. And therefore, we are saying that we need to respect the Constitution. We need to abide by the provisions of the Constitution, which states that we shall have government and opposition. So, in a situation whereby opposition gets to bed with government, that is a sign of betrayal to its citizen, because now we don't have anybody who checks or who corrects or who gives a different point of view to the government.
But clear one would say that you're speaking from both sides of the mouth. From the fact that when Kenya Kwanza formed government, and you were part of that, we saw the Kenya Kwanza government going on a buying spree with post-election agreements with those who would have been part of the opposition. We saw President William Ruto taking members of the opposition and taking the numbers into parliament, and at that time you were silent. So how then today you have a basis to sit and say that the president broke the law, yet you're part of that?
When I was Secretary General of UDA party, I insisted on constitutionalism. You remember when we were forming coalitions, post-election. Coalitions can be formed before elections or post-election. And what we did, and actually it was basically getting UDM into our side, we followed the provisions of the law. Remember, we said that it is only after 90 days that one can come out of a coalition that he had before elections. And that is exactly what we did. We waited for 90 days to lapse, and then we got into an agreement with UDM. What I'm saying is, if there is an arrangement whereby the opposition party now decides to get into government, let them follow the Political Parties Act provisions, which provides now that ODM now should not be acting as the official opposition in parliament. Let them go into an agreement with UDA, not some unofficial engagement like the one they had, the MOU. The MOU is not a binding a document. It's not a binding document as provided for in the Political Parties Act.
Does it matter? Does it matter if there's an agreement? Because person after person after person has told us how the whole of Parliament, regardless of the side on which you fall, has been captured by the executive. So does it matter if there's an opposition that says they're the opposition or not? If everybody of the 290 represented and the 47 on the other side are all doing the bidding of the executive, does it matter if there's an agreement or not?
Those are clear signs of a dictatorship. And that is why I said, if we followed the provisions of our constitution, then we will be able to have a decent form of governance in this country. I still condemn the leaders of ODM party who have gone into parliament, who have gone into government without following the clear provisions of the Constitution and the Political Parties Act.
At the time Kenya Kwanza was getting to you as the Secretary General of UDA, at the time when President William Ruto was going into this post-election agreement, was there a fear that with the opposition having the numbers that they had, that it would have been difficult for the president to run his affairs? The reason why he got into these post-election agreements.
But you see, that is the role of Parliament. Parliament is not an extension of executive. The legislative arm is supposed to check government, and therefore the president should not be at any point in worries that he cannot run government when he has no numbers in parliament. Parliament as an institution is an institution that is supposed to oversight the executive.
Do you therefore agree from the word go that the opposition was majority in the National Assembly?
That is arguable, and the matter has been taken to court. A decision has been made, but the same opposition which has been given the privilege of being majority has refused to take up the position. That's why I said Raila has never been keen to taking up leadership, because the courts were very clear that Azimio was the largest coalition in the House. But up to now, Junet Mohammed, having turned into a sycophant of Ruto, has refused to take up his office. And therefore, you know, that's why I say, if constitutionalism is not upheld in this country, we are taking this country to the ditches.
Malala, I have a question. Does it even really matter? Because you're talking about constitutionalism, but as it is right now with the current state of affairs in this country, does it even really matter if we have opposition?
It does, because with a character like William Ruto being president, you need people who can check him, and that is exactly what we are doing. You need people who can slow him down in his actions that are not maybe pleasant to the citizenry of this country, and therefore opposition can always be there, and I believe that the opposition should be there. You know, when Raila Odinga left for government, he left a vacuum, and nature does not abode vacuum. Mm-hmm. The citizens occupied that position, and that's why you see maandamanos in this country for the first time, which are leaderless, which are tribeless, because the citizens have decided to take up that role. And that's what we are saying, that power belongs to the people. And in 2027, the people are going to exercise that power through the ballot. We've had the deputy, Ruto's deputy or co-president, Raila Odinga, saying that he wants to have some...
the deputy would be Kithure Kindiki.
Okay, no? Kithure Kindiki and Raila Odinga came in the same way. So
okay.
To me, they are still same characters. Huh? Raila is suggesting that we have a conversation, a national conversation. These are normal tricks. Raila has been getting into government through those conversations. You remember IPPG. You remember the National Accord. You remember the handshake, building bridges, now broad-based. You know, you get into some conversation which eventually favors him to get into government without responsibility. So what we are saying that these conversations are a waste of time. As DCP, we've categorically stated that we are not part of any conversation with people who are entertaining extrajudicial killings, with people who are entertaining corruption in this country, with people who are benefiting from leakage of public funds in the government.
But Malala, when you say that, what DCP is standing for, my question, fundamentally standing for what exactly? Because what makes you different from Kenya Kwanza or Azimio? If you're talking about corruption, you're also in bed with people who have had corruption allegations.
Convicted, in fact.
Members of the party who are also having issues publicly, integrity issues.
Give me an example.
You have people in your coalition.
Yeah, I want to reply specifically to the person you're addressing to.
Let me speak about Linturi, for example.
Yeah. Linturi, the Constitution clearly provides that somebody is innocent until proven guilty. There is no specific case that has found Linturi guilty of the allegations. And therefore, I cannot want to give him judgment and say that Linturi is, not unless you tell me somebody who has been convicted and is in our party.
Well, does then public perception matter? If you look at the case of Linturi with the fertilizer scandal, whether he's guilty or not, and you're right, until proven guilty. But in terms of party perception and what you're standing for to the general public and what we see in the public space where what we refer to as the Gen Z, which is now the opposition, saying that we want people of integrity, we want people of good moral standing, character, and all that. Then when you associate yourself with people who, perception-wise, carry that baggage, does it concern you?
To me, that even if the perception is not favorable to that person, we cannot suspend the Constitution at that point. To me, I would say that if the general public feels otherwise about an individual, then they should exercise their power through constitutional ways, like during elections. If per se, if Linturi is perceived to be corrupt, let the people who see him as corrupt exercise their powers through the ballot so that they deny him that chance through constitutional ways.
So, Cleo, how would you respond to questions being asked that your coalition that you're part of right now is part of the problem why we are here today? Case in point, you are part of the government that you're in today. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was there, Linturi was there, and this is a coalition of individuals one would say has seen Kenya find itself where we are today. If you talk about Finance Bill 2024, Rigathi Gachagua was there. You talk about Linturi fertilizer scandal and the decisions that were made in Parliament, he was there. How do you disassociate yourself from the problems where Kenya finds itself today?
History cannot be edited. First of all, I want to apologize to Kenyans. We participated in bringing this bad leadership. And the same way Kenyans were conned is the same way we were conned, because we were convinced into getting into a coalition which believed in ideologies. You remember, I was the custodian of the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, and I religiously wanted that manifesto to be implemented. As the Secretary General, I had an implementation matrix which was monitoring what promise has been implemented and what promise is pending to be implemented.
You even sat in cabinet as a silent, maybe cabinet invitee.
Not really a silent, as an advisor.
An advisor to cabinet.
A political advisor to the president on matters monitoring the promises that we had made to Kenyans. And, like it's just like marriage. You know, you get into a marriage with a beautiful lady. You know, you think that she's okay, she's going to be a mother to your children, but later on you realize
she's a man.
Yeah, exactly. So when we got into this engagement with William Ruto, we thought that he's a prayerful guy, he's a truthful guy, somebody who will live up to his promises. But when we got into now the implementation session, we realized that he's not the man we used to think he is. The guy, he's a pathological liar, and this I can say without fear of contradiction. Whatever he tells you today, he does not mean it.
Begs the question, Cleo. At the point when the implementation matrix of the manifesto was not followed, did you resign or were you kicked out of the party?
That was when the turbulence started in the party. You remember, ahead of the 2024 finance bill, myself and my party leader, current party leader now, Rigathi Gachagua, we were categorical about the increase of taxes. In fact, even go to cabinet, Rigathi Gachagua insisted that his minority opinion should be noted. And in the minutes of that cabinet meeting, we raised our concerns and we told the president, come on, politically, we do not think that raising these taxes is good. And that is when they started profiling us. That's when we started getting problems in the party. And we've been very clear about living up to the promises of our people. And since we differed ideologically, William Ruto decided to kick us out.
So why didn't you resign?
We still had hope that, come on, we can still push within. But we realized that the people we are dealing with are not people who are reasonable, are not people who are truthful, and that is when we divorced.
Why didn't you speak then, speak now?
I spoke then. I came to this show, I said that our ideology is to lift people from down to up. I was an advocate of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. But the people who are now supposed to be moving, doing the mass movement, were reluctant.
Did William Ruto change? Did he change from what you say you knew him to be? Because you were all together. And for you to be all together and present yourself to a public, you spent hours on end together, day after day, months after months, in the run-up to an election, after being elected. You knew who this man was. You knew a lot about him. Did he change somewhere along the line?
I think I can say that William Ruto did not change.
So you knew who he was before when you agreed to get into a relationship with him?
No, he did not change. I think this is the character of William Ruto.
So you knew who he was?
So he pretended.
Oh, okay.
He pretended that he's a good guy. During election time, and when he was quoting us to support him, he pretended.
And he
lied to the church.
And he managed to
lied
convince,
to Kenyans.
He managed to convince everybody.
That's why I'm saying this guy is a pathological liar. If he managed to convince 7 million Kenyans, that guy is a pathological liar.
Do you agree that even with his pathological lies, you're part of that cabal that pathologically lied to Kenyans?
We were conned. We were lied to. It's like you being part of a church and the bishop preaches. You'll follow the leadership that is there by then.
Blindly,
so
Cleo.
Not blindly. We had a document, a binding document called the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, and that is what gave us hope, and that is what we said. Come on, if this document can be implemented to the latter, then Kenya will be a different state.
Kenya is at the place whereby it's being called a precipice, whereby there is a place where you're going to have to jump over the edge, you sink or swim, right? So hear me out here, and this is what Kenyans are asking. You must then be very honest at this point, that somehow, from what you're saying, somebody managed to hoodwink 50 gentlemen and women around him to start a government, and that it didn't turn out right. And this hoodwinking or this lying continued for a year or so, and then somewhere along the line you realize, hang on a minute, this is not who we expected to be. But you're now asking Kenyans to shift their focus and say, we, the same people who are not able to see this person for whom he was, give us an opportunity to come in and lead the country. Does that sound right?
We've seen this country experiencing somehow similar problems, and every country has got a challenge. When you go to Uganda, it has got its own challenges. When you go to our neighbors here, Tanzania, it has got its own challenges. Every country in this world has got its unique challenges. But when it gets to a point whereby the leadership of that country does not respect life, then we get onto the red line. Because a president who wakes up in the morning and gives orders to shoot its citizen in disregard of the Constitution, I think we've had even more dictators in this world. But we've never seen a president who is behaving in an obvious way when its citizens are dying. During the Sabasaba demonstrations, we lost almost 38 lives. Up to now, William Ruto has not even empathized with those families. Empathy does not need a budgetary allocation. Empathy just needs a heart and some attribute of leadership. Up to now, government has said nothing about those families which lost their loved ones. And therefore, we are dealing with a person who has no human heart. That is where now we draw the lines. We have had cases of corruption. We have had cases of poor management of state corporations. But when it gets to a point of us entertaining and celebrating when your neighbor is dying, when your child is dying, then it raises a red flag.
There's been a lot of pain in the country over the last few months. There's been a lot of death, a little bit too much. There's a lot of things going, court orders flying back and forth, and still with the demands of the people still being front and center of all of this, where democracy is center stage. And I am of the opinion that in this current political dispensation, countries have to work out their own democracy. It cannot be scripted the way it has been, that has been handed out down to us from different other jurisdictions, that we should be able to chart out our own democracy, especially on this continent. But here we are, and we're saying that we want to have a new system of doing things with the same people who practice in the system. Is it possible?
I think that is what the Gen Zs are pushing for. They're pushing for real change. And you remember last year, after the 2024 finance bill saga, the opposition then, Raila Odinga and William Ruto, got into some agreement of some sort to try and calm the situation.
And I think that's where this country went wrong, because we thought that the chaos that was witnessed in this country was as a result of pressure from the opposition. The president did not, or the security agencies in this country, which are meant to give intelligence to the president, did not interpret that situation correctly, because they assumed that it was a war between opposition and government. And when Raila Odinga now gets into government, everything will be sorted out. Little do they know that the real issues that are affecting Kenyans are not even political identity. They are basically issues of unemployment, issues of government officials roving around in opulence, issues of leakage of public funds through misappropriation, issues of bad governance. And therefore, if the president can concentrate on those issues, then we can see change. But as it is right now, there is no intention to make that change in the current governance. You remember the 10-point agenda. We would like to ask the ODM party and the UDA party, what have they done on the 10-point agenda? You remember the Gen Zs were demanding that the president should lower the number of advisors in different offices in government. The president has since then increased the number of advisors in his office and in other offices. You remember the Gen Zs were pushing for government officials not to swim in opulence. You remember Murkomen putting on a watch of 13 million, and people were really against that kind of show in this country. But since then, the president has given millions of shillings to his deputy to dish around in the name of empowerment programs in this country. Yet we know that we had set institutions which were meant to empower Kenyans. Institutions like Youth Fund, where did it go to? Institutions like Women Enterprise Fund, institutions like Uwezo Fund. That money that is being misused by the president through his deputy should be channeled through these organizations. And this is what the young people were pushing for. The young people were pushing for government projects which stimulate economy. Up to today, we do not have a government program which has actually created employment for these young people. The young people who you see in the streets are jobless. They are frustrated simply because the government is not intentional in providing these jobs for them. And therefore, it calls out for a regime change. And this is what these young people are pushing for, that for Kenya to move on. I've had several leaders in government trying to claim that the opposition has no agenda. Our agenda is Ruto must go. Our agenda is one term. Yes, our agenda is Ruto must go. For change to happen in this country, we must have a regime change whereby Ruto gets out of power so that we can restore normalcy in this country. And if you want your payslip to be restored in a dignified way, Ruto must leave. If you want your payslips these overburdened extra levies like housing levy to go out of your payslip, then Ruto must go. If you want us to stop killings in this country, then Ruto must go. And therefore, we cannot start telling Kenyans that we shall build a road. Yet, you've seen leaders in this country proclaiming publicly that they're going to subvert the will of the people in the next general election.
Did we see the worsening of issues with the incoming President, William Ruto, in 2022? Did we see that things got relatively worse? Let's look at some of the things that you talk about. Extrajudicial killings, which, by the way, is the first item of the agenda on the broad-based government. What do they call that thing?
Bread-based.
No, the
agreement.
The MOU.
The MOU, exactly, the accord, whatever it was. So extrajudicial killings and the stopping of that was the first thing. But we did see extrajudicial killings happening in the Uhuru administration. Under that, we saw things like that happening, things that people are complaining about today. So my question is, did we see a significant worsening of things with the incoming Ruto administration that perhaps were not happening before, or at least were not happening to the extent that they're happening today? Did we see that?
Of course, extrajudicial killings have scaled a little bit higher in Ruto's regime. And the most annoying thing is when you normalize the situation. When public officers come out, are giving out shoot to kill orders. You remember what the CS Murkomen was trying to say. And that kind of impunity and that kind of heartedness in our country is what people are annoyed with. I've just been reading a story about one chief in Nanyuki who lost her firstborn daughter during the Sabasaba chaos. Now he's torn in between grieving his daughter and duty. Government has told that chief not to speak about the death of the daughter. The chief is torn in between. He's having an internal conflict. And what we are saying is that, you see, normalizing killing is worrying. And I think this is what this government has done. It has normalized killing. You know, you die tomorrow. Somebody says that you've been hit. You hit yourself on a wall in the walls of the cells, and the matter rests.
You see, in July of 2023, the spokesperson Jeremy Lawrence of the UN called on the authorities to ensure that Kenyans are allowed to exercise their rights in accordance with the Article 37 of the Constitution, as well as end extrajudicial killings. At this point, you were squarely in government. And at that point in July as well, at 22nd of July 2023, these were your words. The coalition is disappointed with the statement of the UN as it fails to condemn the opposition for resorting to violence after losing the ballot box in a free and fair election. The opposition has latched onto the global dissatisfaction with the high cost of living. You further went on to say the National Police Service and other security organs have exercised great restraint in the face of obvious provocation by well-organized and well-funded saboteurs trying to bait them into excessive responses. Back then in 2023, you were okay with police brutality in the country. How then today do you say extrajudicial killing?
I think you've intentionally misunderstood that statement, because the statement is very clear that after the 2022 general elections, opposition should not use other ways to get into government. They should respect the will of the people. The will of the people was that the Kenya Kwanza administration was the one that was duly elected. And therefore, the opposition should not go on the streets and use other mechanisms to get into power. And we have said, by then, the police restrained themselves. You remember during the Unga Revolution, we did not have such numbers that we are having right now.
But Kenyans were killed.
I don't have the statistics as of now.
Yes,
but all along we have been condemning, and we have always said that taking away life from somebody is the last thing we can resort to. And whether it was in 2023, 2025, 2032, any person who takes away life from another should not be entertained.
At that point in time, when you were the Secretary General of the party, did you do anything as Secretary General to ensure that the police who killed innocent Kenyans who were demonstrating during the Unga Revolution are brought to justice?
You know, as a Secretary General, you know the roles of a Secretary General. It's not to, the role of a Secretary General is to speak on for the party, and I spoke for the party that we cannot allow an opposition which has not been duly elected get into government through dubious ways.
But you equally spoke and thanked the police, yet we know the police spokesperson is there to speak for the police.
No, I thank the police for restraining themselves from killing people. Because, you know, if you read that statement, it's very clear that the police actually restrained themselves even when they were being provoked. They restrained themselves. So I don't know what changed. And I think
when we started interfering with the police, this is when this kind of indiscipline has gotten into the police force. Murkomen, being the CS for Interior, his work basically is to implement the policies of that ministry, but not to give commands to police officers. We've seen the guy walking around police stations and giving police officers orders. When did the independence of the police service be interfered with a civilian? And therefore, we would like to call upon this government to ensure that they respect the structure of our constitution, whereby the police are given independence. But as it is right now, we have people seated in cabinet wanting to command around, and even others not seated in cabinet. We've seen fellas moving around and commanding police officers just because they enjoy proximity to presidency. And we are saying that we call upon the IG to ensure they exercise the independence of the police service.
Malala, you've said one time, you've said this country needs a regime change. Do you see yourself and your party leader, Rigathi Gachagua, as that solution? When we advocate, and when these young people called Gen Z advocate for regime change, we also must be alive of the fact that for us to change this regime, we must engage into a political process, whereby removing William Ruto cannot be removed. He cannot be removed through hashtags. We will need a political process, and therefore, us, we are there to enable and to help and to facilitate the removal of this man through a political process. And therefore, in this place, do you see yourself?
Of course.
And your party leader Rigathi as that change?
Why not? Okay. Why not? Because we've been on the forefront advocating for truth in this country. We've been on the forefront advocating for equality in this country. Myself, personally, if I speak for myself, I have done everything humanly possible to fight for humanity, to fight for fighting vices in our community, even to an extent of doing plays, educating the public on means in which we can have equal distribution of resources in this country. Remember the play I did in 2013, Shackles of Doom? It spoke about equal distribution of resources. You remember the play I did in 2018 called It Is Well. I did a play castigating police brutality. You remember the play I did this year, during the drama festival, Echoes of War. So I have gone out of my way, tried all means, tried the means, or the official means, the unofficial means, the entertainment path, to bring change in this country. And therefore, I cannot do it alone.
Now that is
I require you.
That is you as Malala.
Yes.
Now, my other question is, do you fear you'll end up in the same position when you supported Ruto with your whole heart, with your whole soul, your whole mind, supported Ruto, then things changed. Now you are next to Rigathi Gachagua, who, by the way, is in the US, and he has said quite a number of things. And these things that he has said is being accused of being reckless, violent, and an uncouth dictator. And Rigathi cannot accept differing views, especially from his own community. And these are the words that are coming from Kiunjuri as one of those examples, because Gachagua went all ham on some of the leaders he disagrees with within the Mount Kenya region. And he's actually telling people not to re-elect these leaders and calling them the greatest enemies of our community. And so those who are perceived not to go with Rigathi Gachagua are deemed to be greatest enemies. And yet, you are the party leader to this. Do you fear that you might end up being in the same position as you are with Ruto?
Life is a process that we all live. You cannot project your next course of action. You only have the ability to know or to control what you have
at the moment. Whatever happens for in your life in future, you have no control about it. But what I believe in, those statements being
by your party leader,
no, by Kiunjuri, to me, I think those guys are paranoid, because my party leader is exercising his rights as a politician. He's mobilizing people around himself. He's mobilizing his community around himself. And therefore, he has all the rights to say that, come on, do not elect these people, because these people bear certain tags of leadership attributes which do not align to his school of thought. And therefore, he has no problem at all saying that do not follow Kiunjuri. In fact,
it's in the way he says it, because the accusation here is that Gachagua harbors a lot of bitterness.
But that is
and he seeks to revenge in a very violent style to settle these political scores for selfish gain. That is what he's being accused of.
Not for self. Interpretation of of somebody's character is subjective. I can say that she is beautiful, and maybe through your lenses, she's not beautiful, and therefore, Kiunjuri's interpretation of Rigathie's attributes is subjective. If he thinks that about Rigathie, I think otherwise about Rigathie. I see him as a truthful man, as a person who believes in equality, as a person who is fighting for social justice, and therefore maybe if you look at him if the truth emanating from Rigathie's mouth is not pleasant to you, you will look at him as a bad person.
Another truth that does exist with Rigathie Gachagua is he is known as the share master. And we know that when you got into government, he spoke about shareholding and how much was supposed to go where. But here you are moving and making sure that you you form government. How then are we sure that these shares he's talking about will not be a conversation moving forward? How sure are we that the 30% that was supposed to go to the Western region through Musalia Mudavadi and it will end up there, and that Kenyans will feel as if this government is theirs and not shareholding for those who voted for it?
Rigathie Gachagua was simply verbalizing the Kenya Kwanza agreement. The coalition agreement was deposited in the Registrar of Political Parties office. And that agreement clearly stated how the government, through political appointments, will be shared. Political appointments. It did not say that government, through Public Service Commission, this share will be given to these people, this share will... No. He was directing his sentiments to political appointments. As I told you, forming government is a political process. We have communities which come together to form government, and therefore they agree during, and even post on how to share those positions. The formula of sharing Kenya Kwanza government was encapsulated in the Kenya Kwanza agreement. And that is what exactly Rigathie Gachagua was articulating. And therefore, do not feel bad when he articulates something that has been signed and written and deposited in the office of the Register of Political Parties. To me, I don't find that as offensive. Shareholding is just a form, or he was expressing the contents of the Kenya Kwanza agreement. And therefore, to me, even me, as we get into government, I'll be asking my people, because I'll be representing my constituency, my people, what will my people get in this government? And that is what forms a coalition, and that is what motivates people to even come and vote for their preferred candidates. Apart from their ideologies, that candidate will be selling. And therefore, I got nothing wrong against the shareholding narrative that Rigathie used to propagate.
In that time. It's a long road ahead, but thank you for being here this morning, Deputy Party Leader. Like I said, a lot to unfold in the coming days, just days, and wants to see how this goes forward.
But just before that, we also must call out the hypocrisy nature of our president. Recently, you saw him saying that he's ready to be castigated
he's going on to build a church of 1.2 billion Kenya shillings at State House. You know very well that Kenya is a secular state. Kenya is not a religious state. But the president goes ahead and says he will continue building that church. But the hypocritical part of it is when a week later he goes on and votes to legitimize LGBTQ. So here you are saying that you are holier than thou, you want to build a church, and then the next week you ascend to something that is going to decompose the moral fabric of our young people. He's now legalizing same-sex marriage. Is this a church-going president?
Those are questions, isn't it? And those are things that are being
And we need to call him out. Let him stop this hypocritical nature. When he tells you left, he means right. When he tells you up, he means down. And therefore, as the president of this republic, he must correct those mannerisms.
Cleophas Malala, thank you for joining us here this morning. It is now 2 minutes after 8. Until the next time we talk again, good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.